Hi, and welcome to The Bright Balloon, a podcast where I'm sharing bright ideas for your balloon business. My name is Sarah Meyer, and I'm a balloon business owner like you, and I love the creative side of what I do, but I really love the business side, which seems to be the part where most people struggle. So I'm here to help. Each week, I'm bringing you an episode full of bite-sized tips you can use to make tiny improvements to your business. I want you to make more money, eliminate stress, and learn along with me as we grow our creative businesses together. Welcome to The Bright Balloon. Hello and welcome to this episode. All right, I am so excited to record because I haven't recorded an episode in 2.5 months. So I batched all of my summer episodes so that I could take some time off, and I totally missed it. Like, I missed recording. There were so many things that I was like, I don't want to wait 2 months to tell everyone about this. So I'm really excited to be back and talking about my Red X months. So if you remember, I attempted to take off most of the month of July. So just as a quick refresher, I heard about this on another podcast where the hosts X out an entire month and they don't do anything. Like, they don't do email, they don't do their podcast, they don't do work, they don't do anything behind the scenes. They just like go on vacation with their families and that's it. So that was too much of a stretch. Like, I still have a day job. I already had jobs booked for balloons. Like, I can't just not do anything for a month. So I attempted to implement this when I had about 5 jobs on my calendar, maybe 6. And I was also going to Balloon Wonderland, which kind of took me out for 2 weekends. Like, I knew I wasn't going to be taking jobs those weeks anyway. So I thought this would be a good month to attempt it. And I'm going to jump into all the details, like what went well, what I realized a lot about myself and my business, what I'm going to be doing moving forward. I'll talk about Balloon Wonderland a little bit. But first, we are going to take a break so you can hear from one of our wonderful sponsors. Hey friends, I know you've heard about ballooncoach.com, but I wanted to take a second to talk about Balloon Boss Summit, which is the in-person event that happens every year in Florida in November. I've been for the past couple of years, and I'll be returning again this year as an instructor. It's one of my favorite events because it gives me time and space to consider my business goals and network and learn from other balloon professionals all around the country. So check it out in the show notes where you're listening because there are only a few spots left. All right, so let's get right into it. The big question that everyone kept asking me was, did I take any extra jobs? Like, how was the month going? At first, I was really disciplined. I said no to a lot of jobs for July, and it became easier to do. At first, I was like trying to justify it to people, and then I was really pushing grab-and-go garlands, which I have a lot to say about. But at first, I was really aggressively saying no. And then I reached my cracking point, and I did take additional work because I was delivering to a country club, which is a newer repeat client, and it's really easy. Their budget's always like right around $1,200 because they want an arch, and then they have like 10 or 15 tables, and they don't really care what I do for centerpieces, but the budget is always really nice. The theme is always really fun. They're really flexible about delivery and pickup. It's close to my house. So I was delivering for an event, and the woman hosting that party organizes the events for this club. And she said, oh, we actually have another one in just a couple weeks, and it's on July like 23rd, I think. She was like, the theme is Good and Plenty and Piano Bar. So I thought that was really funny. Good and Plenties are like these gross candies that I actually like. They're like black licorice, and they're like pink and white, and then they were having dueling pianos, so then it was black and white, like piano and music themed, with this pink and purple and white, really fun, centerpiece theme. So for sure I wanted to do it. Not only the budget, but it was something that like I wanted to do. And she also was like, we're having a girls' night the following week. So like 3 days later, she was like, we're also having a girls' night, and we just want like pink bubbly champagne centerpieces. So again, I said yes. So I added 2 like right off the bat, but they were they were too good not to say yes to. So I'm going to talk about that later, kind of like what I learned about myself. But yes, I did add additional jobs to my month. And then I went to Balloon Wonderland, had a blast. Obviously didn't take any jobs there because I wasn't even in the same state. But when I got home, something strange happened. And usually when I get home from conventions, I'm pretty tired. I'm pretty burnt out. Like I don't want to see a balloon. But for whatever reason, Balloon Wonderland gave me a lot of ideas. Like I feel like I saw a lot of cool things. I saw a lot of techniques. And I was like fired up. Like I was excited to take work. So after I got home, there was 1 week left in July and I didn't have any jobs. But it was kind of like all bets were off. So from there on, it was like, July's almost over anyway. So who cares? So I did start taking jobs that last week. So I don't feel bad about that, but I was kind of surprised how ready I was to work. I didn't see that coming. I was thinking that I was going to put off working on balloons until, August 1st. Like I was really going to stick to my plan. So I think the big thing that I learned is that I don't really need a full month off from balloons. Like I don't feel any more rested from taking or attempting to take July off in full. I feel like I would have benefited more by taking 2 weeks off completely. So if you remember, I was still pushing grab and go garlands. I still had those 5 jobs that I had originally booked. So like at the end of the month, when I was looking back on my calendar, I had a job almost every weekend. Sometimes I had multiple jobs a weekend, and then I had grab and go garland pickups on Thursdays. So even though grab and go garlands are totally mindless and I could do them in my sleep, it's still work. And it still meant that I had to come into my balloon area and inflate and get things out and prepare to have a, $100, $200, $300 pickup. And that tended to tire me out more than just like doing a job. The other thing, my cautionary tale about the grab and go garlands is I started relying on them too much. Like someone would send a form or submit their form and say that they had a birthday party on Saturday and they wanted an arch. And I would respond with my standard, I'm unavailable for your weekend event, but would you consider a grab and go garland? And some of those did convert. Then I started getting a little bit carried away and people would say, we have a party on Saturday. We're looking for 2 arches and 10 centerpieces and a balloon drop. I mean, I'm exaggerating, but big orders. And I would say, instead of just saying, no, I'm not available, like I should have, I would send my grab and go garland template. And all of a sudden things started getting a little bit more unwieldy in that area of my business. Like people wanted to pick up helium balloons and they wanted to pick up, yard numbers, which like I don't even do. They wanted to pick up anything. And it was almost like I caused that. Instead of just saying, no, I'm not available, it was like I somehow introduced them to the idea of a pickup. And all of a sudden people were trying to pick up arches, which is like not a thing. You can't do that. So I learned that grab and go garlands, while still a great option, are not something that I need to recommend to every single person. If I'm clearly not a good fit for their job and I don't want to work on a weekend, I need to just refer them to somebody else, because at some point I'm not serving them, I'm not serving me, and I'm confusing things. And I'm creating more email for myself because then they have follow-up questions about what they can pick up and when, and is it going to fit in their car, which breaks my entire model of only selling grab and go garlands as pickups. And that works because it's automated and it's simple. So the minute that I kind of removed that automation, I made a whole bunch more work for myself. So midway through the month, I definitely cut way back on the grab and go pushing. And instead, I just started telling people I was not available. Another interesting shift that happened this month was that I started looking at my money or my income in a different way, because I have always felt like I couldn't really feel like money, sales were real until I've done the job. So if someone pays me in July for a job that I'm not doing until October, I don't know if it was like I wasn't able to feel good about it or it wasn't real because I hadn't actually done the job yet. So it's hard because now I've outsourced all of my bookkeeping. So I get reports based on revenue, based on sales, not based on when I'm actually doing the jobs or when those sales actually come to fruition. So this month I anticipated really not feeling like I was making any money because all of the jobs that I had booked were prepaid and all of the money that was coming in was for future jobs. So it was like I couldn't really enjoy that or something or feel like it was real money. But throughout this month, what I realized was because I cut back a little bit, especially on the first half of the month, because I had cut back, I was like sending out invoices so quickly and my communication was really on point, which meant that people were paying really fast and they were paying high amounts. So I was generating a lot of income, a lot of revenue. So my July isn't going to look like I was sitting doing nothing. I mean, partially because I wasn't. But like I thought I would see this huge dip in revenue or in sales, but it kind of set me on this course to shift how I'm thinking about my bookkeeping. The first thing is this idea that like money isn't real until a certain point. And I think that comes from the fact that like COVID kind of scared me. Like I had to refund a chunk of money for people who had paid deposits or had paid their jobs and then everything changed. So part of me does feel like you can't really count your chickens until they've hatched. Like you can't just go spend $4,000 if someone is booking a $4,000 job 6 months from now. Like obviously you can't just like blow through the money before you've purchased the supplies. However, there was this shift in thinking for me, it's like a sale is a sale. So even though this month I wasn't necessarily like doing the jobs, I was still able to make a lot of sales for future jobs. So in the end, this July isn't going to look like a huge dip in sales. It's going to look like a pretty normal month. And I think I'm going to move on from this idea that I can only count the money or look at the jobs done in a certain month to feel like good, or I don't know. Like I always have thought like, oh, it was $1,000 weekend. It was a $5,000 weekend, or I did $2,000 this month. I did $5,000 this month. Now I'm up to like, I did $10,000 worth of jobs this month versus thinking of it more as I did $10,000 worth of sales this month. Like those jobs aren't all going to be this month. They're not going to be in the next 2 months or 6 months, but still sales are sales. So my shifting or my thinking is shifting in terms of my revenue, and I'm starting to look at income like income, not looking at it like jobs completed, which is how I've always kind of thought about my jobs. And something else happened too, and that is with this podcast, which I'm doing a lot in terms of growing this podcast, and more on that later. But I've always thought of this podcast as like fake money as well. Like, oh, course sales, like that's just a little bit of extra income. So like that doesn't count. Or sponsorships or any revenue generated from this podcast. It's almost like a side hustle of my balloon business, like a side hustle of a side hustle. And I've kind of always just thought of it as like bonus money or extra. Like I couldn't plan on it coming in. But this month, being able to step away from my balloon business a little bit has also kind of showed me like how much I really value this podcast, and also like this idea of like not counting money as real, I think is problematic. Like any revenue that you generate should be counted, like with air quotes, if that makes sense. And I've always had this habit of looking at certain income streams as like not real. Like they don't count. They're not legitimate. And this month, when I was able to cut back on balloons and focus more on the podcast, I was able to value the little bit of revenue that this makes. And also, I think identify a lot of the potential, not necessarily revenue wise from this podcast, but just potential. Like I think there's so much more I can do to grow. And I think that there's so much that I am passionate about. Like when I started the podcast, I didn't know if it was just going to burn out. Like I would do 5 episodes and give up, whatever. My goal was to make it a year. And now I'm coming up on 2 years and our 100th episode. And I feel like I have more energy about the podcast than I ever had. So all of that and the money stuff, I haven't totally unpacked yet, but I felt a shift in July. And I think part of it was just having time to think about this stuff. Sometimes we're so busy working, we don't actually have time to just think. And July gave me that space. Not as much as I was originally hoping, but it did give me some time to consider like, where is my revenue coming from? What money am I not considering to be real money? What am I investing in versus not investing in? Like, again, not to dwell on the podcast, but like, I will happily contract out something for my balloon business because I feel like I can justify it because of the amount of money that I'm bringing in for my balloon business. But I won't contract anything for my podcast because it doesn't generate that same level of revenue. But again, instead of separating the two, I'm just starting to kind of look at it as all one big business that all works together, because without my balloon business, I don't have the podcast. Like, it all works together. Everything from my balloon business is content for the podcast. So my unwillingness to subcontract, or I guess have to like justify what's worth subcontracting, that is also something that I've started thinking about. Maybe that's you too. Like, maybe you have another income stream that you don't really count as income because it's so small, or it's like not going to last forever, or you just don't feel like it, quote unquote, counts, worth anything. Like, maybe you have a really part-time job. Like, for example, maybe you are friends with an event planner and once a month they pay you a little bit to come and help at one of their events, just help them, set the room. Or, we have all these connections through event industries. I know other people who help out florists during like Valentine's Day or really busy times. So maybe you have a side hustle of your side hustle, or just some revenue stream that you're not counting because it doesn't seem real. I don't know if this applies to any of you, but it was something that also kind of bubbled up to the surface during my month of July that I think I just need to think about a little more. And it was just nice having that time to think and consider some of those things. So I think overall, the big thing that I realized that I already mentioned is that not working for a month for me right now seems unrealistic, but I think truly not working for 2 weeks would have felt nicer because I was still on email. I was traveling, which for me really, really tires me out. So I was responding to client emails. I was, trying to juggle a lot of things. And some of the things I was trying to juggle were saying no to jobs. Like, it almost would have just been easier to do the job than it was to not do the job, if that makes sense. But I still think that there needs to be a way to not work. So I'm going to attempt this again in January and then again next July. And I'm just going to shut everything for 2 weeks. So I'm going to not respond to emails. I'm going to not do grab and goes. I'm not going to go anywhere. I think another big flaw to my plan was that I anticipated Balloon Wonderland, which I was there for like 7 days. I anticipated Balloon Wonderland being like time off. And it was amazing. It was definitely like a vacation vibe. I had so much fun, but it wasn't time to like catch up. Like, I wasn't getting ahead on emails or sleep by any means. Like, I was busy, I was working. I felt like I needed a vacation from a vacation. And the other thing that kind of compounded was that in order to go to Balloon Wonderland, I took a week off from my day job. So then the Monday that I got back, that's always like a rude awakening when you have to jump back into the real world. And I had to catch up on a week's worth of work at my day job. So I think doing this next time, I would not do my 2 weeks closed or 2 weeks off during any other vacation or convention or anything like that. I also would not take my vacation from my day job at the same time. It felt like too much. It felt like at the end of the month, I had to catch up on so much. Like, I still feel a little bit behind, but I feel like I've said nothing good about this month. Overall, it was really, really positive because I learned so much about myself. So let's get into that. So I mentioned at the end of the month, I kind of cracked and all of a sudden just started taking all of these jobs, because I wanted to. And I think because I hadn't filled my schedule with so many little jobs, like I didn't have, a $300 garland installation or a $400 helium centerpiece balloon delivery thing. I had a lot of white space on my calendar, and that was designed, I purposely did that. I said no to a lot of jobs. But then here's what started happening, which I thought was interesting. I started getting requests, and they weren't all like super last minute, like 2 weeks out, a week and a half out. For most people, they don't feel like that's a last minute request for balloons. And because normally I would have been booked 2 weeks out, I'm booked like 2 months out most of the time, I wasn't. And I ended up booking, okay, hold on to your seats. I booked 5 $1,000 jobs 5 days in a row. And like, that does not happen to me. Like my typical job is between $400 and $600. Anything in like the $1,200 range, that's like a solid job for me. That's like a really good, like a Saturday job. And then like really, high end for me is like 3,000 or 4,000, and that's those corporate clients. Like I am not booking $10,000 jobs every weekend. Like that is not the scale of my business. So to get $5,000 in business in 1 week of last minute jobs was really incredible, but also really enjoyable because I wasn't trying to squeeze them in between other lower paying jobs. I had all the time in the world to work with these people. And the thing is, those last minute clients are usually the ones that I find to be the easiest to work with because they just need something. One was a corporate client and she told me like, I don't even care. I don't care. Here's the color scheme. Just send it to me because we kind of dropped the ball on this. So I was able to book that job. That actually was closer to I think a $1,500 job. I had another party that I just said was too small of an event. Like I just wasn't going to take a $300 booking. And she ended up raising her total party to like $900. The other one was another one of those country club jobs. And then there were a few others. I can't even remember what they are. But I kind of was able to have the time to think about like, why am I, first of all, able to say yes to these? And it's because I wasn't booked up with all of these smaller jobs. And also, why am I saying yes to some of these jobs and no to others? So I realized that all of the jobs I said yes to fit a certain mold. And that was, they were close to my home. So all of these jobs were like within 20 minutes of where I live. So in my town. They were also things that I wanted to do. Like one was that Good and Plenty party. One was a corporate job that I've done before, and they always have really fun themes and really easy themes and flexible budgets, and they just are easy to work with. Another one was like a wedding with organics that I love. So it was all stuff that I wanted to say yes to and I could say yes to. And because I had kind of set this principle in my own mind that I was going to say no to jobs, I wanted the money to be worth it as well. So I said no to $300 jobs. I said no to $400 jobs. And I kind of, not convinced people, but I just really matter-of-factly said like, I have like an $800 minimum. And I pulled that out of nowhere. I made that up. But that's kind of what it was going to take for me to break my own Red X month rules. And it paid off. Like, they said yes, and I booked all of these jobs, and I think the biggest reason was because I had the space. Otherwise, if I had a $300 party an hour away, I could not have fit in a $1,500 party at the same time on a busy Saturday. So I really took a minute to be like, well, what's happening? And I remembered a book that I had read probably 5 years ago, and it was called The Pumpkin Plan. So I realized halfway through the Red X month, I was not doing a Red X month. I was doing the Pumpkin Plan, which leads into a whole other thing, a whole other section. Let's take a break and then talk all about my self-realizing of the Pumpkin Plan. I'm going next, what it's done for my business. I feel like I have more clarity than I ever have in my life, and it feels great. So I'm going to share about that in just a minute. If you haven't checked out Havin a Party Wholesale by now, what are you waiting for? They have all of the brands that we know and love as balloon professionals, and they even offer free shipping on orders over $200. So the next time you need balloons, make sure to check them out. You can click the link in the show notes and tell them that the Bright Balloon Podcast sent you. All right, so after I realized that I was not, in fact, doing a Red X month, and I never really was, I never really put a Red X through the month of July and said no to everything. I was always kind of working around the idea, like, I'm not going to take any jobs except for the ones I already have. And I'm not going to take any jobs except for garlands. And I'm not going to do any jobs except for the ones that I want. So I never really was doing a Red X month. I think I do need to take strict time off. But what I really was doing was The Pumpkin Plan. And I read this book. It is by Mike Michalowicz, who also wrote Profit First, which if you have listened to those episodes, you know Profit First defined my business. Like I love the Profit First cash flow model. We'll link to that episode if you haven't listened. But so I am a big fan of this author. And because of that, I read The Pumpkin Plan, which is his other book, 5 years ago. And quite frankly, it was just too early in my business to be able to understand or apply any of the concepts. The very, very basic idea is that if you're growing a field of pumpkins and those are your clients, they all kind of feed off the same vine. Like that's you. You are doing your best to grow all these pumpkins. But if you are paying them all the same amount of attention, the big pumpkins are going to stop growing because you're not nurturing them anymore, because all of your time and attention is going to be spread out across all of those pumpkins, even the ones that are tiny, even the ones that are rotting, even the ones that stink. So those are your clients. So the idea is you get rid of all of the little pumpkins, you kill off the vine so that 100% of your attention, all of the nutrients can go to the big pumpkins to grow them even bigger. So you get these supersized clients, these clients that you cater to. And I felt like that I was doing that, even though I wasn't really sure, because at the time when I read this book, I was like, what are you talking about? I have no clients. Like, how am I supposed to kill off the vine? I don't even have a vine. I don't have a business. So at the time, nothing clicked, nothing made sense. But then all of a sudden this month, it like came back to me like I was struck by lightning. I was like, wait a minute. This is the pumpkin plan. I want to work with some pumpkins and not other pumpkins. How do I get rid of the little pumpkins that are distracting me from the big pumpkins? So I did not actually do my Red X month. I tried. I actually did a very successful first round of the pumpkin plan. So in keeping with the theme, the Pumpkin Plan is going to be the book of the month for August. So we are already 2 weeks in. If you are not sure what the book club is, it is a fancy way of saying bonus episodes for the podcast. So you can become a member. There's 100 of us in there, and it's 4 bonus episodes each month that you only get access to if you are a member. It's $3 to join, and then there's a $5 tier, which right now is the same as the $3 tier, but in the near future, the $5 members are going to get some bonus content. So more on that to come, but you just have to sign up using the link in the show notes, and it's a Patreon account. So if you're familiar with Patreon, you just download the app and you get all of the bonus episodes right in the app on your phone. And there's also this fancy thing called an RSS feed, which means that you enable that one time, and then these bonus episodes will just show up on your podcast player. So like in Spotify or in Apple Podcasts, like wherever you listen to this podcast, that one will also show up. You just have to do something special so that they do show up, because it is a paid account. So I am so appreciative to those of you that are in the Patreon account, in the book club. Book club just sounds fancy. You don't have to read the book. You don't have to buy the book. We don't all meet and talk about the book, although I would like to start doing that because I have so much to say. But at the end of the day, it's just more episodes. So I am going to be reading through and walking through and implementing the Pumpkin Plan in my own business. Another thing I should mention is that this is, I believe, the 5th book that I am doing. So as soon as you join, you get access to all the old episodes. So we've gone through Working Hard, Hardly Working, You're a Badass at Making Money, 10% Happier. All of those book episodes are in there. You get access, and you can join for a month and then quit, or you can stay and pay monthly. And I know a lot of people just join and don't even listen to the book club episodes as a way to support the show, and that is so appreciated. So thank you. But I'm really excited. I am 2 episodes in recording wise, so that means I'm 4 chapters in so far. And this Pumpkin Plan book is a game changer. Like, I'm very, very excited. So far, I am to the point where I've refreshed myself on what it actually is. I am starting to rank my clients and figure out who my top 20% is and or are, and what qualities they all have. I am defining my area of innovation, my AOI in my own business, so that I can start attracting those big pumpkins and then nurturing them. So if any of that sounds interesting to you, please, please, please join us in the book club. This is going to be one of my favorites, I already know, and I am excited to implement some of these practices into my business. And I'm lucky that I'm to the point where I have clients to get rid of. I know that sounds silly, but I very much remember in the beginning where I would just look at my email, I would click refresh. I was teaching at the time and I wanted to die. I was so bored. And I know that sounds weird. Teachers work very, very hard. I could never do it. But I taught art and I taught the same class 9 times in a row every single day. So I taught 6th grade art at a big school. So I taught every single 6th grader every single day. So I had 9 teaching periods and I taught the same unit back to back to back to back to back 9 times in a row. And it was so boring, I thought I would cry. So that is when I launched my first business. At the time it was face painting, but I just remember like, has anyone looked at my website? Has anyone found me? Who could I email to try to get a weekend job? Like I was so desperate for work that the idea of having too much work, too much interest was like a sob story. Like, please spare me how terrible it must be to have too many clients. But once you get there, it's really overwhelming. And if you're starting out, I think there's something to be said with figuring out who your ideal client is from the beginning, which again, I know it's easier said than done. In the beginning, it's like anyone is my ideal client. Anybody who will pay me money is my ideal client. And yes, but I think if you make it to like year 4 or 5, things get really, really busy and all of a sudden you're catering to everybody and you're at the point where I am, where like it's really hard to find a weekend off, let alone a week, let alone a month. I kind of don't know what I was thinking. I tried. So planting those seeds early, which is the first step of growing a big pumpkin, is planting a really rich seed. I think there's something to be gained from for everybody. So I am loving it. If you are reading the book along with me, you don't even have to do it in the book club. If you just want to get this book and check it out, send me a message on Instagram. I want to know what you think. I want to know if you think that this is doable. Another thing I like about the book is that he gives really concrete examples of how businesses have implemented this. So, dog walking businesses, financial analysts, computer repair people, artists. So it's not just a one and done. It's not just for service-based businesses. It's not just for corporate businesses. It's this idea that no matter what business you're in, if you are trying to serve all of your clients and they're all different and they all want different things from you, it's going to be really hard. And I believe that to be true. I think I have a lot of this already in my business. I certainly am niched down. I do not offer everything. I have a very narrow, even like color chart, What I offer is very pumpkin-esque, dare I say. I'm already doing some of these things, so I think it's going to be an easy fit. But yeah, that was kind of my big takeaway from the month. And if I hadn't tried to take time off and tried to do this Red X month, I don't think I would have remembered the pumpkin plan, and I don't think I would be as excited as I am now. But I'm not going to say goodbye to the Red X month. Like I said, I'm going to try to do a Red X 2 weeks, and I think July and January are going to be my times to do it. I thought July was going to be a stupid time to attempt this, but it turns out that a lot of people travel. A lot of people are on vacation. A lot of balloon people were on vacation. Summer, it's half over, so all the kids are out of school. They're going back to school quickly. So July ended up being a really great time to cut back. So I'm glad that I stumbled into that as well. Another thing that I wanted to mention, this is just a little bit of housekeeping. In the show notes, there is going to be a link to a survey, and a lot of you have already taken it. I posted it on Instagram, and it went out in the email on Wednesday, the regular email that goes out. So I am trying to grow the podcast. I just love it. I love it, you guys. Like, I love recording. I love sharing. I love being a guinea pig for silly things and then reporting out. I love talking to people in all different parts of our industry. I love this podcast. So I'm looking to grow the show essentially. And I don't know what that looks like. It might be more episodes. It might be more sponsors. It might be exclusive bonuses. I'm not quite sure, but it needs to work for you. So without listeners, this is is nothing. So there is a simple survey that you can take that basically just asks for feedback, like what you like, what you want more of, what you want less of, how you offer, how you listen, what offers you've taken advantage of. It really, really is helpful. Please be honest. Like, that is the best way to support me, is just through honesty. And then as a thank you for taking the survey, you get a 50% off coupon for anything in the Bright Balloon store. So any resources, any courses, anything you maybe have had your eye on, like the custom color chart, like with my inventory system, all of that type of stuff is half off. You can even buy the whole bundle of everything, all of the laser focused resources, and get all of that for half off, which is like a $200 savings. So, that is a thank you for helping me move in the direction that you want this podcast to go, because that is ultimately the direction that I want it to go. One final bit of housekeeping is, if you don't already follow the Bright Balloon on Instagram, it's been kind of a ghost account. I kind of had it just to have it, but I'm really trying to post a lot on there. Particularly, I am posting reels, which, if you are on Instagram, you know reels are like the thing right now. So if you want to watch me do a reel a day, I am doing that so that I can record a show about it next month. So I am going to release an episode all about doing reels every day for a month, what it did to my growth, what it did to my confidence, I guess. They're pretty embarrassing, you guys. Like, I am not one to like do lip syncing or like little dances. I literally want to die thinking about doing that, but anything for a good episode. So I am recording a reel a day, and a lot of them are just my favorite tips for balloons. So you can follow along and encourage or laugh at me, whichever you feel like doing. That's at the Bright Balloon on Instagram. So that is it. It feels really good to be back, to be recording. One of the things so far that is coming up in the survey is that a lot of you wish the episodes were longer, which shocks me, because I always think everybody just wants that instant gratification, like, you know, a 30-second reel or TikToks or whatever. So it is interesting and nice that you are interested in longer episodes. So I have been cutting down a lot of the interviews or keeping them short on purpose, but now I feel a little bit freer to make those just their full lengths. And also, I hope you are more understanding of my rambling. I also sometimes trim down these episodes because I feel like I'm just going on and on. But if that is okay with you, then that makes my editing faster and easier. So make sure to fill out that survey in the show notes. Give me any feedback. And also, I'm approaching my 100th episode. So if you want to share a personal win, something that you have gained or learned from listening to the podcast, put that in the survey too, and that will go into the 100th episode, which will be the first week of September. All right, let's wrap this one up. Oh, it feels good to be back. I know that I'm going to remember like 30 things that I wish I had said in this episode, because I thought about it all month while I was attempting my Red X month. But it's nice to get the rust off. I'm glad to be recording again, and I will see you all next week. Thanks for joining me in this week's episode. As usual, I tried to keep it bright and light in a few minutes or less. If you wish there were more episodes, you are in luck. You can join us in our Patreon group for our monthly book club. I record weekly episodes guiding you through a different self-development book each month. For as little as $3 a month, you can join more than 50 other balloon business owners in our private group. Click the link in the show notes to join us.